Hi, I'm Thea Jirak. Welcome back to the Glory Be Block of the Month program. Today we're working on month 9, and that means that we have our quilt center together. The quilt top is done from rows 1 through 6, and we've made our sawtooth borders for both the top and bottom of our quilt. Now we're ready to put our borders on, and we're going to add one border between the 6 rows of the quilt and our sawtooth border, both on the top and on the bottom. When you put borders on your quilt, the most important part about it is using those borders to square up your quilt. And here's what that means. All of us sew with different seam allowances and with different threads and with different machines. When we do that, it's very hard, even for the best quilter, to get exactly the right size block in every single square for every single location. When we put our rows together and press them, and then put the rows to each other, our quilt can vary in size just a little bit. We want to use our borders to square that quilt top up and make it a square or rectangle with the sides the same length and the top and bottom the same length. For this border between the quilt and the sawtooth border, we're going to measure from left to right. And when we add all of the blocks together, if they're finished 9-inch squares, we should have a measurement equal to 54.5 inches from the left side to the right side. We're going to take our border strip, and with a piece of border strip that's longer than 54.5 inches, we're going to put a pin to the left at 0, and then we're going to go all the way to the right, and we're going to put a pin at 54.5 inches, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put a pin in the center of that border. When we do that, we'll pin the sawtooth border to the solid border piece and sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way across. We're going to do the same thing for attaching it to the quilt top. On the left hand side, we're going to put a pin where we started with the sawtooth border. We're going to go all the way to the right and put a pin at 54.5 inches on the right-hand side. And then we're going to put a pin back here at 0, at the center. When we put this pin at the center, we'll then attach the border piece with the sawtooth already attached to it. We're going to sew that to our quilt. Once it's sewn on, you can press away from the quilt and away from the sawtooth border, and then take your rotary cutter and even it up with the edge of your quilt, both on the left side and on the right side. You'll notice that this sawtooth border and inner border are on the top and the bottom of your quilt. So you're actually going to do this twice. Once you have this border on, your quilt top is completely finished except for the 2 outer borders, and that's what we're going to work on next. We're going to use the same measuring process for putting the borders on the outside. When you put the borders on the outside of your quilt, you're going to do the side borders first, both the left and the right, and then we're going to attach our top and bottom borders last. So again, now that we have all of our blocks and our sawtooth border on, we're going to measure from the top of the quilt to the bottom of the quilt. We're going to measure on the left side, we're going to measure down the center, and we're going to measure on the right side. If you get a measurement in all 3 of those locations and it's exactly the same, congratulations. You've done a really great job putting your quilt top together. If you get a measurement that's off just a little bit, congratulations, because your quilt top is still done. But we're going to use our border to even that up and get the same measurement after our borders are on. So we're going to use those borders to square up our quilt. If, for example, from top to bottom on the left side it's 80 inches, and from top to bottom on the right side it's 81 inches, we're going to use 80.5 inches for our border measurement so that when we put the border on the quilt, it's the same length from top to bottom on the left side as it is on the right side. So we would take our border strip, it'll be longer than 80.5 inches. We'll put pins so that one side is at 0, the other end of that border strip is at 80.5. You're going to put a pin in the center and you're going to attach it to the left and right sides of your quilt. You'll have one border strip that you sew on to the left side and one border strip that you sew to the right side. Once you've put those border strips on, you can press them away from your quilt top and even up your edges. Then we're going to attach our outer border. Now you'll want to notice on the Lexington quilt that we're actually using part of the border fabric. The easiest way to cut this is with a pair of scissors in exactly the same location between all of the strips. If you're using the color kazoo, you can either cut your border strips lengthwise or piece them. I prefer to cut them lengthwise, and if you have your pattern and look at the pattern, we show you in the pattern exactly how to refold and cut your fabric so that you don't have any pieces in your border. Once you put this inner border in on the sides, we're going to add the top and bottom borders in exactly the same manner. In other words, you want to have your border strips longer. Put your pins in at the exact same measurement for the top border strip and the bottom border strip. Attach them to your quilt, press them away, and square the corners up before you put that outer border on. You're going to measure again using the same method and put your side borders on, and then put your top and bottom border on. Once you have that done, your quilt top is complete. Congratulations, and we'll see you next month. Happy quilting!